Hey everyone, happy Monday. I hope that you're having a good day so far. Still the morning, so good morning. And I wanted to get on today to talk about this week's emotion of the week. So last week we did anger, and anger is a big one. And what I'm really focusing on is what people consider like negative emotions. And anger, a lot of people see that as don't be an angry person, like smile, it's not that bad, that kind of thing. Well, negative emotions aren't really negative. They're just emotions like every other emotion. You can be happy or you can be sad. You can be, loving, or you could be really angry. So there's really no negative emotion because all of our emotions are valid. And so this week I am going to talk about fear. So fear is like, I feel like that's that next drop from anger. It's like the step, I guess, to the side. I wouldn't say step down, because a lot of times people, when they start to have, get scared, whether it be physically or emotionally, they tend to also get angry. Like it just kind of like flips to anger. And that's what happens for me. But let me give you like a little bit of background on fear and stuff like PTSD and, depression, that kind of thing. Just from my point of view, with all of this, I want everybody to know that I am not a professional. Hi, Angela, how are you? Good to see you. So I want to talk a little bit about, fear and what I have, going on in my life, just because I am a woman who lives with PTSD and depression. And that means, a couple of different things that, can happen in life, can pop up on you at, any time, just because there's maybe a trigger somewhere that had happened. Or maybe if you're in a depressive state that, fear becomes, more, bubbling up because you're not feeling right. You're not feeling balanced. So let me give you a little like understanding of PTSD and complex PTSD. So a really good therapist once taught me the difference between how to tell people about PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and CPTSD, which is complex PTSD. So picture, a 45-year-old man gets into a car accident and he has to go to the hospital and he's in a lot of pain and he, has recovery. And very often people will have a PTSD like episode based on that trauma. And so they need to work through that trauma and get through the feelings that they felt and the pain that they felt when they had that traumatic incident. So complex PTSD is when someone is pretty much just steeped in trauma, with a bad childhood, or domestic violence survivor. They've been steeped in that trauma so much that it becomes a part of their like neuro pathways, and like things change inside of your brain because you're learning a new pattern, whether it's positive, negative. This being negative, that it's changed your pathways in some ways. So with complex PTSD and PTSD, the difference is being that, you have a traumatic event or a couple of traumatic events that you are able to work through. Whereas with complex PTSD, you've been living in a situation of trauma for a while. So one of the responses I have having complex PTSD is that I don't have a physical fear response very often. So I can sit down in a movie theater and watch the most horrific, nasty horror films that you can imagine, and I really don't have that like jump. I don't have that quick like response to it as others would. And this can happen one way or the other. You could be hyper triggered, or you could just not have that response at all because while you were, in your complex trauma environment, you didn't, you learned to not give reactions. Your body learned to not give reactions. And that's kind of how it was for me when I was a kid. Fear was something that, my abuser liked to see. Like they kind of fed on that. And so many times I would have to learn to stop showing that kind of emotion, fear or anger really, because it got a response that was, got moved up, like it got bigger when showing those kind of emotions. So I learned in my childhood not to show fear or anger. Of course, that's not healthy. Obviously, we all know that that's not healthy, that, we should be experiencing our emotions in any, in the capacity that they come to you as, because emotions are valid. All emotions are valid, regardless of, the feeling it gives you. There's a reason why it gives you that feeling. So fear. Fear is an appropriate response to if you or someone that you love is in danger, whether that's physically or emotionally, mentally, that, you're getting that quick reaction, that fear. And I feel fear in my body. Like I feel it whoosh. And I know a lot of other people do too, but people experience it in different ways. But when you have that fear response, it's not a bad thing. It's not something to not live with, sit with. And I think that that's a really difficult thing for a lot of people to learn to sit with their emotions, because many of us have been taught not to just push them down and go about your business with a smile on your face, right? So fear is a very appropriate emotion because it tells us that something's not right. And I wrote in my post earlier today, I was going to say something's wrong, but I feel like the word wrong is a very loaded word when it comes to mental wellness and emotional wellness. Wrong gives you the idea that, it's the opposite of right. Whereas when I talk about these kind of things, I like to talk to them as not right, not sitting right with you, not feeling right. And so fear is giving us that, that knowledge that something's going on that we need to really focus on and, either try to stop or, deal with in a wise mind sort of way. So wise mind, I use the term wise mind. I do DBT, and it's a skill in DBT where you learn to, you learn distress tolerance. And many times they talk about your emotion mind and your critical mind, and that in between there's a wise mind. So fear tells us that something's not quite right. We need to focus on that to see what needs to happen, what if it needs to stop it, or something needs to change. And many times people will replace fear with anger. And again, this is something that I do. So I'm just speaking on my own, I'm speaking on my own experiences. But as I grew up into an adult and I got away from my abuser, I started to turn my fear into anger. So it was quick reaction. It's a secondary emotion that I use so that I can get away from that awful feeling of fear. So why not take that fear and change it into anger and be more in control of it, right? Does it make sense? I hope it makes sense. But by recognizing that fear is that primary emotion, you're better able to respond to it in the manner that it should be. I have dealt with, relationship problems because I will get scared and I immediately go to anger. And it's something that I have to work on myself. So recognizing that you're scared, that there's fear involved is really important in getting yourself into that wise mind and understanding what needs to happen next. Okay. So that's pretty much my little story on fear. And I would love for everyone to, give me give me some questions or comments. Again, I am putting it down here. I'm a woman who has lived with, you know, these symptoms, these things that happen to me. And I've done a lot of therapy since I was a kid. I am not a professional. So please do not take my whatever ramblings as like therapeutic. It's just something to think about because, you know, I've dealt with it. I'm learning as I go along, as I go through my skills and my therapy. I've learned more along the lines of, you know, this distress tolerance and learning how to get back into wise mind. So please, comments below. I would love it. Oh, thanks, Angela. I'm so glad you stopped by. And, you know, hi, Amy. But yeah, so please, comments below or DM me if you want to learn more about, like, you know, if you're like, what's this DBT? That I can send you some stuff that maybe you can look up and be interested in. So have a great rest of the day. I am going to, throughout the week, post about fear on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll put this up on YouTube. I have all the different places, all the places. So if you could go, you know, like check out my Instagram, you know, check out my YouTube. It's just places for me to put stuff and to get my word out. So have a great rest of the day, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.